On the day I was recognized by my biological parents, a voice claiming to be a system found me. It asserted that as long as my true family behaved indifferently towards me, I could exchange for monetary rewards in reality, a binding I did not undertake in my previous life. At that moment, I pondered how a despicable system could possibly exist in this world. How could an ordinary person, after enduring great difficulty to find their biological daughter, fail to love her? How could one not love? Yet in my past life, the false daughter possessed a system that commanded absolute obedience from everyone. It could compel others to unconditionally comply with her demands, even at the cost of their own lives. I feared that one day, driven by her selfish desire to protect her family from being taken away, she might bring ruin upon them all. In my previous life, I spared no effort and resorted to all means to drive her away. Yet, my parents perceived me as jealous and greedy, convinced that I was a person of malice and cruelty. My biological brother harbored animosity towards me, bullying the false heiress upon his return, ensuring that I found no solace at home or at school. The object of my affection, who was destined for an arranged marriage with me, labeled me as vicious and inherently wicked, dedicating himself to protecting the counterfeit heiress. Ultimately, when I exposed the false heiress's possession of a system, I was confined to a mental institution. Enduring torment from electric prods and whips, I suffered alone, waiting for death. Yet, my family remained indifferent, never once visiting me. In the end, when I finally breathed my last, my corpse went unclaimed, resting in the mortuary. Upon reopening my eyes, I found myself returned to the day I was brought back home. This time, I would ensure that they heeded the words of the true heiress. 01 Mother. Since my sister is home, I shall no longer cling to this place. A delicate and pitiful voice seemed to awaken me from the chilling shadows of my past life. Gradually regaining control over my body, I looked around at the familiar faces. I had been reborn, back to the day my biological parents brought me home. I raised my gaze to my family, who held her in their arms, silently weeping. If only these people were not my kin, and if the girl they embraced were not their biological daughter, it would indeed be a tragic play of separation and reunion. In my previous life, upon being brought home, I had been lost in my own world, reveling in the excitement of finally having real family, completely oblivious to the fact that this family was anything but normal. I had believed in their love and wealth, unaware of their underlying afflictions. Reflecting on it now, my biological parents were indeed part of a remarkably affluent family. They possessed what others lacked and had what others possessed. My mother, father, and brother now stood at a distance from me, while the girl before me wept, her eyes filled with disdain and contempt as she looked at me. Truly, what a lack of upbringing. Why did you not announce your sudden return in advance? My brother, Fu Sheng, cast a cold glance in my direction, questioning, "Do you think this is your home, that you can come and go as you please?" In my previous life, I had stubbornly retorted with tearful eyes, "This is my home. You are my family. Why can't I return?" I had thought I was in the right, believing they would understand my words. The next moment, my mother raised her hand and struck me across the face. Having tasted the bitterness of their cruelty, I would not suffer again. Seeing my silence, my mother indeed raised her hand, more slowly this time, as she intended to pat the back of the adopted daughter to soothe her tears. My brother, undeterred by my quietness, spoke with even greater ferocity. "Get out. Lele is upset. We do not wish to see you." My parents echoed my brother's sentiment. "Next time you come to our home, at least give us a call first. How rude to just show up. One wonders who taught you such manners." Once Fu Lei had cried enough, she pretended to hold my hand, saying, "Sister, Dad, Mom, and brother were just upset for a moment. Don't be angry with them. We are family." I feigned a smile for her sake, saying dispassionately, "I understand. They just haven't accepted me yet. We are truly family." Upon hearing this, the tears that had pooled in Fu Lei's eyes cascaded down once more. Yet, I remained rooted in place, waiting for a specific voice. The soothing words from my parents, the mocking tone from my brother, and Fu Lei's wails were not the sounds I awaited. Finally, that voice emerged. "Greetings, host. I am System 007. Are you willing to bind with me? If your currently acknowledged family members show signs of not loving you in the future, you may exchange that for monetary rewards." I immediately confirmed, allowing the orb of light, claiming to be a system, to swiftly enter my body. In my previous life, after my mother struck me, they never offered an apology. Instead, they blamed my selfishness for Fu Lei's grievances, insisting on teaching me how to be a proper daughter of the Fu family. I was naively convinced that true parents would unconditionally love their children, even if they were biological. Despite their treatment of me from our very first meeting, I continued to believe that love could awaken within them. When I overheard Fu Lei and the system plotting how to better command them, I still chose to love them, thinking they were merely under the system's control. I would go to any lengths to awaken their love for me, desperate to prevent them from continuing to be manipulated by Fu Lei. Houses, cars, corporate assets, even sacrificing a kidney, everything could be done to fulfill Fu Lei's desires. My efforts to protect them were perceived by them as covetousness for their assets and affection. They labeled me an outsider, convinced that my return was solely to usurp their wealth and the love they had originally intended for their adopted daughter. My brother despised me for returning, believing he had the right to bully Fu Lei, using every means to torment me both at school and at home. My betrothed, who had once been enamored with me at our first meeting, initially spoke of marrying me to escape my original family. Yet, upon learning the truth of my family situation and seeing Fu Lei by his side, he completely changed his heart, dedicating himself to safeguarding Fu Lei's future. I merely refused to donate a kidney and would not relinquish what was rightfully mine, my parents and brother, only to be labeled as selfish and self-serving. Ultimately, they exploited the remnants of my familial affection, drugging me during a dinner and sending me to a mental institution when I became unwell. In this life, I no longer require their affection, which holds less value than mere paper. Starting anew, I will neither compete nor contend, but rather observe as the false heiress manipulates the system to serve her own desires. I am eager to witness just how much they truly love her. If they can love someone with no blood ties more than their own biological daughter, can their love truly be unconditional? 02. After binding with the system, I initially intended to make a swift exit. However, Fu Lei, sensing my eagerness to leave, abruptly engaged in conversation with her system. System. What conditions must I meet to command her? This, perhaps, was a stroke of divine mercy in my rebirth. I overheard her dialogue with the system, just as I had in my past life. As long as her trust in you reaches 100, the conditions will be met. Indeed, in my previous life, Fu Lei had been utterly incapable of wielding control over me for the same reason. In this life, when we first crossed paths, Fu Lei did consider the prospect of manipulating me. However, having been abused since childhood, I harbored deep-seated doubts about human nature, yearning for the so-called bonds of blood. In my previous life, upon realizing I could hear her conversations with the system, I was driven to liberate my loved ones from the fate that could be dictated by her mere words. From the beginning, I had never trusted her in the slightest. Her repeated attempts to win me over, only to offer assistance when I was cornered, those few words of support felt like a honeyed sword, needing to be approached with caution. Eventually, Fu Lei abandoned the idea of pursuing me, seeing me as an insurmountable obstacle. Upon discovering that I was aware of her system and her efforts to awaken my family, she sought to make me disappear entirely. The reasons I would be confined to a mental institution and tortured to death were largely due to her machinations. In this life, when Fu Lei heard the system mention the need for my trust, she immediately transformed into a facade of concern, feigning deep-seated animosity towards my return while speaking to my biological parents. Sister, please don't go. I was merely terrified that Dad and Mom's love would be divided. I didn't mean to act this way in front of you. Sister, can you give me an opportunity, as well as a chance for the Fu family? After saying this, she wiped her tears and continued speaking. I find myself in a state of uncertainty regarding my affiliation with the Fu family, questioning whether I am still entitled to speak on their behalf. This pitiable yet gracious demeanor, seemingly considerate of the greater good, paints her not as the counterfeit heiress who usurped another's life, but rather as a paragon of reasonableness, the only individual within this household capable of accepting and accommodating me. My biological parents and brother, observing this version of Fu Lei, are engulfed in guilt, an emotion that, intertwined with love, wields the most potent influence over human hearts. Even if this guilt is artificially concocted and utterly irrational, it is regrettable that she has chosen the wrong person to manipulate. I am not one to easily place my trust in others based on mere words. In the home of my adoptive parents, I was deprived of even the most basic affection, let alone the essentials of life or decent clothing. My haircuts were a haphazard affair, performed with a pair of scissors in hand. Endless chores and agricultural labor were my lot, accompanied by relentless beatings and abuse. Growing up in such an environment, I became acutely aware of the stark contrast between my life and that of others from a very young age. It was then that I began to fantasize about a normal family, an obsession that was both unnecessary and delusional. For someone raised in such circumstances, trusting a person poised to snatch everything away from me based on a few words is inconceivable. In my eyes, only my true blood relatives, the ones destined to be my genuine parents and brother, deserved my unconditional trust and care. Everyone else warranted scrutiny. Yet here I am, forcing a smile, even shedding a few tears, appearing moved by her outstretched hand in what seems to be a moment of despair. "Thank you, you are the first to welcome me home." Upon hearing these words, my biological parents and brother display an unexpected flicker of emotion on their faces. Before Fu Lei entirely relinquished her pursuit of me, she undertook numerous endeavors to win my trust and favor. Typically, these involved her offering assistance when I was at my lowest, along with substantial material and financial support. In stark contrast, my genuine family has nurtured me with heartfelt affection, providing me with a monthly allowance and occasional rewards surpassing 2 million. This amount could secure a commendable residence in a third or fourth-tier city. Yet, Fu Lei's fear of loss looms large, despite her abundance of wealth and care. The more she possesses, the greater her fear of losing it becomes, spending over 200,000 a month without a second thought, entering luxury boutiques with ease, and leaving half-eaten meals at high-end restaurants. She is unwilling to relinquish this lifestyle, which relies entirely on the love and trust bestowed by my biological parents and brother, supplemented by systematic assistance. My presence poses the greatest threat to her seemingly perfect existence. As long as I remain steadfast in my principles and refuse to trust her, I will not fall into the trap of being controlled by her mere words, as if I were to be possessed by her. Her system holds no sway over me. Before I reach adulthood and can partake in the college entrance examination, I must extract as much as I can from them to distance myself from this dysfunctional family. Their future lives are of no concern to me. In this new life, my foremost priority is to live for myself. "Sister, which room would you like to stay in?" My biological parents and brother were expressions of discomfort. They were unprepared for my arrival. They do not welcome my presence, even refusing the guest room. "I love sunshine. Is there an attic here?" After uttering this question, I await their response. To my surprise, smiles flicker across the faces of my biological parents and brother, seemingly pleased by my understanding. There is indeed a storage attic, where sunlight streams in each morning. My brother, with a hint of disdain, remarks, "Other rooms are insufficient. If you stay there, at least it shows you understand." Prior to being found by my biological parents, my adoptive parents had relegated me to the living room, balcony, or bathroom. I struggled to secure a place at a key high school, yet they insisted I sell my spot to someone else, even arranging for a nefarious factory to ensure I would be trapped and unable to escape after completing middle school. In a fit of anger, I reported the individual trying to buy my spot, along with the factory's illegal employment of minors under 16. With the assistance of my teachers and the village committee, I finally managed to enroll in my senior year. Yet, under the duress of my adoptive parents, I was stealthily arranged to meet a village idiot for marriage. My biological parents looked down upon my humble origins, never considering the childhood I endured in such an environment. Had it not been for their appearance, which offered a glimmer of hope for familial love, I would have long since succumbed to despair in this world. In my previous life, it was their emergence that allowed me to view them as my reason for survival. Regardless of how they treated me or humiliated me, I remained steadfast with fervor and hope. Unfortunately, my blood relatives merely exchanged one form of abuse for another, seeking to control me. It felt as though I had leapt from the depths of a fiery pit into a pot of lukewarm water, where I would be swiftly boiled to death or slowly cooked to ruin. The outcome was ultimately the same, an inescapable demise, with little distinction between the two. When I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, I wondered if there might come a day when they would awaken to the truth of my devotion as their daughter. Yet, they never visited, nor did they provide timely financial support. It took repeated demands from the hospital staff for them to begrudgingly pay the minimal fees, far inferior to the designer bracelet adorning Fu Lei's wrist. As I lay on the brink of death in that institution, they attempted to absolve themselves of responsibility, carelessly discarding me outside, fabricating a tale that I had escaped and met with an unfortunate demise. The psychiatric hospital was situated in the outskirts, and in my state of long-term malnutrition and abuse, I could barely muster the strength to drag myself back to the city. In the end, I perished, merely a nameless corpse, devoid of familial ties. My biological mother, witnessing my seemingly understanding demeanor, feels a twinge of guilt but still defiantly asserts, "Let it be clear. We are allowing you to stay in the attic, but that does not constitute mistreatment." My father, casting a cold glance in my direction, merely scoffs and dismisses. It's commendable we can even offer her a room, given she is a stranger. Fu Sheng grits his teeth and declares, "Do not think to retreat and advance. Our family only recognizes Lei Lei as my sister." Meanwhile, I attentively listen for the voice of the system. "Congratulations, host. Conditions met. System rewards 30,000 yuan. Please specify the settlement method in a private setting, cash or within a payment tool." The attic, indeed, had long been neglected and untouched. Quietly, I locked the door to the attic, listening intently to the sounds outside for an extended period. Once I confirmed no one was passing by, I designated my suitcase to manifest the reward. Shortly thereafter, my once empty suitcase was filled with 30,000 yuan in cash. I took the money and rented a modest apartment near the school, establishing it as my true temporary residence. Certain important documents and belongings were not something I wished for them to access, potentially using them as threats against me in the future. "Sister, are you not sad?"
Fu lei suddenly inquired.
My biological parents and brother were preparing to head to the company. Currently, it is a holiday, leaving just Fu Lei and me in this villa. "Sad about what?" I countered, noting Fu Lei recording our conversation on her phone. In my previous life, she had employed this very tactic, coaxing me into expressing hatred for her and our parents, only to play it back for them. This old trick has long been transparent to me. Yet, Fu Lei relishes this approach, her voice sweet and soft as she says, "Originally, you were the true daughter of this family, but now this home belongs to me. Can you truly not feel sadness?" In the past, her demeanor might have incited anger or genuine sorrow in me, prompting me to reveal my grievances. However, the suffering I endured has long since become a mere joke to them. Even having raised pigs and assisted in the birthing of cattle in the village, this laborious work is regarded by them as a sordid tale of a rustic peasant. At present, I find myself devoid of the inclination to indulge Fu Lei in this juvenile game. They harbor a disdain for dining with me. I am merely served a few dishes in the attic by the servants, or I resort to the kitchen to eat alone, for which the system has generously rewarded me with several thousand. They have conversed at the dining table about my rather pitiable situation, but due to our unfamiliarity, they also wish to avoid any potential contagion from me. For the sake of appearances, they have refrained from subjecting me to a health examination, opting instead to observe me for a time before allowing us to share a meal. This overt indication of my outsider status has unsettled Fu Lei. She confided in me. "My parents are concerned you might be contagious, which is why we eat separately. Are you truly not upset?" In my previous life, I would have been infuriated and despondent, causing a ruckus demanding they take me for an examination and insisting they not look down upon me. However, in this life, armed with the wisdom of my past experiences, I merely smiled and emulated Fu Lei's gentle tone, speaking with greater grace. In truth, they could have directly requested that I undergo a health check. After all, when bringing home a pet, vaccinations are a must. I understand that even summer workers in restaurants require health certificates. My apparent understanding left Fu Lei somewhat flustered. She played the recording for anyone to hear, revealing my words that reflected consideration for the greater good, an understanding and acceptance of my parents, and a complete absence of bitterness or envy towards my family. Fu Lei, being of a similar age, naturally perceived my demeanor as somewhat abnormal, a typical child, faced with such disdain from their biological parents, would have longed to run away or staged a scene. Yet my tranquil and uncontentious disposition, akin to a flower blooming with dignity, suggested a maturity that surpassed theirs. In reality, Fu Lei had no desire to converse with someone raised in such humble circumstances. However, I share the blood of the Fu family and have been acknowledged as such. In her pursuit of intimacy to exert control over me, she reluctantly feigned sweetness. "Sister, these are merely leftovers from the family. Consuming them may not be good for your health." In my past life, the household servants, aware of my unpopularity, once commented while I sought a mango that is Miss Lei Lei's favorite. I insisted on devouring the 2 pricey mangoes sent from Japan in one sitting, earning a scolding. My mother sneered, "If it weren't for our family, you might not earn enough in a month to afford a single mango."
Indeed.
A mango could fetch over 10,000, a sum beyond the reach of an ordinary job. Fule continued her attempts to win me over. "My parents are still testing you. If you desire better, I can transfer some money to you. What do you think, sister?" Without hesitation, I produced a recently purchased budget phone. "Go ahead and transfer it." "Thank you, Lele. You truly are the most wonderful girl I have ever met." Despite her praise, my trust level remained unchanged at 99. Moments later, I received a notification of 50,000 yuan deposited into Alipay. As the system alert and the notification of Fule's transfer resonated in the air, we both laughed. Mine was a genuine smile, while hers bore the tension of suppressed animosity. A single phrase had prompted the Fu family's faux heiress to transfer 5,000 yuan to me. Had it been anyone else, they would have assumed this girl harbored no ill intentions, especially given that she seemed to contemplate my discomfort upon returning home. Yet I was acutely aware of her ulterior motives and ambitions. "Sister, you must give our parents some time. Never lose hope. They still love you in their hearts. However, as you know, business is akin to warfare. They are not adept at expressing affection." I nodded in agreement, but by evening, my biological mother sought me out in the attic, her demeanor confrontational. "You took 50,000 from Lele. How shameless can you be? At your young age. You should not learn to manipulate others for money." Her words struck me as absurd. She was, after all, my own mother. She had come to inquire about the new household registration I had obtained, concerned it might mirror my previous life. They intended for the registration to bear only my name. She asked what new name I wished to take, hoping I would neither bear my father's surname nor my mother's. I could choose any name for my own registration. This way, the family inheritance would remain intact, as I was still their blood, easily placated with a bit of money. The system assessed this task at 10 million, exceeding the 500,000 they had planned to offer me. In my previous life, I had caused a scene, seeking out marketing accounts and media outlets to publicize my return, believing it my right to share the same surname and household registration. Yet, ultimately, I had died without witnessing any grand announcement of my return to their lives. After venting her frustration for quite some time, she finally broached the subject of my new name. If it were not for this situation, she would not have sought me out, coincidentally arriving after Fule had given me the 5,000. Initially, she had informed my father of 500,000, only to attempt to bargain with me. She brought a lawyer to draft a supplementary agreement. These agreements were neither legal nor reasonable, but their family, fearing I might gain an advantage, insisted on establishing one. Unlike my previous life, I no longer sought to align myself with their family. My biological mother appeared taken aback, evidently surprised by my understanding. She regarded me with a hint of affection, saying, "I know this may not be fair to you, but you did not grow up with us." I replied coolly, "I understand. We are, in fact, strangers." At that moment, I was merely 17, having spent only a few days in their presence. My calm demeanor and maturity struck them as peculiar and unfamiliar. Yet, I could not help it. The weeping, tempestuous self from my past had perished, and I could not reclaim that version of myself. With their assistance, I acquired a new name, one that bore my maternal grandfather's surname, a rare family name, Ming. After some contemplation, I inscribed my name as Pluto. When I finally received my independent household registration, they all examined it first. They found my name amusing, perhaps a reflection of my youthful exuberance. For the first time, I saw a sense of relaxation in their eyes. My father chuckled, "Well, after all, you are just a child raised in the countryside. A unique name is quite entertaining." My brother, surprisingly, smiled without disdain. "Who would have thought you possess a touch of the whimsical?" I was at a loss as to what made them find me somewhat endearing. My mother regarded me with a friendly gaze. "From now on, you should live your life well. We can gradually get to know each other. Why not come down for dinner tonight? Don't always isolate yourself in the attic." Fule, beside me, clenched her fists until her knuckles turned white. I recognized she was about to employ the system. As expected, when dinner time arrived, the family's demeanor shifted dramatically. The warmth and kindness in their eyes evaporated, replaced by disdain and contempt directed at me. "From now on, you should move out and stay in school dormitories. This card contains 600,000. It will suffice until you graduate from university. If you fail to gain admission, working to support yourself until 18 would count as responsible parenting. Do not speak ill of Lei outside. She is the treasure of our family. The household does not belong to you, nor will it ever. Do not harbor any delusions. So this is what delusion is? I accepted the bank card they offered, simultaneously hearing the system's reward notification. System reward acquired. Pending redemption amount increased. 10 million. Triggered bonus for moving out of the Fu family. Reward amount. 50 million. The wealth has accumulated like an ever-growing figure, leaving me utterly indifferent. The equal love I sought in my previous life was merely a delusion in their eyes. Their unwavering trust in Fu Lei remains unshaken. After just a few words from her, they fell under her sway. In my past existence, my only desire was to awaken my family's affection for me and to excel in my studies. However, because I bore the surname Fu, they feared losing face and hired various tutors for me, teaching me dining etiquette, social dancing, and even specialized courses on skincare with regular maintenance sessions. My academic performance suffered, as I had emerged from an area marked by educational inequality. During high school, as I faced my final year, I found my studies exceedingly arduous. After I mentioned Fu Lei's system, they concluded that I had intellectual issues. My abysmal grades were one thing, but my mental state was deemed abnormal. In this life, I no longer seek to claim an identity as a member of the Fu family. Instead, I pursue my own ambitions. Having celebrated my 18th birthday, I acquired an independent household registration. The Fu family, eager to sever ties with me, compensates me solely through an employment relationship. As a result, my earnings are classified as labor income, and I am now a fully capable individual in civil matters. Even if I desire a spacious apartment, I am entirely capable of purchasing it. After agreeing to stay in school accommodations, I moved out of the Fu household and initially purchased property in my name. However, upon further contemplation, I decided against buying, as I have set new goals to completely distance myself from them. I watch them as they flatter Fu Lei, discussing a 10-day trip to Europe, and I feel no envy. Fu Lei's appetite has grown insatiable. A 10-day European tour is merely child's play for her. What she truly desires are shares in the company, a topic my biological parents and brother are deliberating. Yet, in the moment of Fu Lei's fury, they numbly nod in agreement, promising to exhaust every resource to appease her. I secretly chuckle. After all, this is merely money. What if one day Fu Lei demands their lives instead? That could very well be their fate. In my previous life, I wished for them to escape Fu Lei's control, which inadvertently protected the interests they never needed to relinquish. In this life, I simply aim to endure my own struggles. Compared to the 6 million they once bestowed upon me, it is but a drop in the ocean to them. Fu Lei seeks their vast sea, their means of survival, intending to transform them into her puppets. Until I have fully extricated myself from this family, I will maintain the guise of being non-threatening. Once Fu Lei discovered the absence of a blood connection between herself and them, her obsession and anxiety intensified as she desperately sought to validate her significance in their hearts. I truly need not exert myself. I hope that when the day arrives for them to be completely drained of resources, they will cherish the daughter they hold dear in their hearts. After all, that daughter is the one they have nurtured since childhood, making her the true kin. Before I organized my belongings to move out, my biological mother visited my attic room. I had tidied it meticulously, and I suggested she recycle some outdated appliances for resale. Although she mocked the insignificance of such money, she appeared somewhat pleased by my humble demeanor. As she watched me tidy up, she intended to assist by folding a few garments, but soon found herself outmatched and settled for a small chair to observe me. This was perhaps the first time she scrutinized her daughter so closely. I assumed she was preoccupied with other concerns and reassured her, "Don't worry. I want to take anything valuable from the house." Suddenly, her eyes glistened with tears. "What are you saying? I just realized you bear a striking resemblance to me. Your eyes are identical to mine from childhood. I almost forgot until now." As she spoke, she began to wipe her tears. To me, it felt rather perplexing. In my previous life, the bond of blood had allowed me to recognize her as my true mother at first glance. Years of grievances poured forth as I beheld her. Now, as I prepared to leave this home for school, she seemed to experience a sudden sense of impending loss, observing how strikingly similar I was to her. her longtime husband, and even her son. It felt a bit late and rather amusing. I calmly remarked, "I've been living here for over a month." She looked taken aback, and after a brief pause, her tears flowed even more freely. Having packed my belongings, she insisted on escorting me downstairs. As we exited, my biological father and brother unexpectedly occupied the living room, unusually attentive rather than engrossed in their own affairs as though I were invisible. This caught me off guard. My father suddenly suggested, "Why don't you just stay at home?" Fu Lei's eyes darted over, her fury barely concealed. I understood the implications of her gaze and the actions she might take. I had never comprehended why they could be so indifferent to me, their visibly biological daughter. As the rewards continued to arrive, I began to grasp the notion that money could alleviate pain. I would no longer be hysterical, nearly mad with desperation for their equitable affection. I had completed all the endeavors I wished to pursue in my previous life. In this life, their sudden warmth and awakening strike me as somewhat absurd. Fu Lei whispered something into Fu Xing's ear, which immediately altered his expression. "You are not to tell anyone at school that Lei is and our biological child." I nodded, assuring him, "Rest assured. I will say I have no connection to your family." Fu Xing appeared somewhat embarrassed. "Well, you could say we're distant relatives." I shook my head. Having been granted a second chance at life, this is the best fate bestowed upon me. Perhaps I simply do not need a family. The so-called normalcy of being loved is merely my own delusion. My biological parents regarded my desire to distance myself with a hint of sorrow but refrained from expressing it. Just before I stepped outside, my father remarked, "I hope you keep your word. Now that you're in the capital for school, as long as you behave and don't cause trouble, your life won't be harder than it was in the countryside. You wouldn't want to return to raising pigs and farming, would you?" I chuckled. "How do you know about that?" "I've never mentioned it." My father seemed to be lost in thought for a moment, as if he had dreamt it. I casually replied, "Oh, is that so?" Before I completely exited, I sincerely stated, "I will delete your numbers and I won't answer any unknown calls. Consider it as though I never came here, just continue to send money periodically. I wish your family happiness." The four of them stared at me, suddenly engulfed in contemplation. The reward for severing ties and not contacting them again was 50 million. If I never responded to their communications for life, it would amount to 300 million. This money was far more enticing than their belated reflections. After my departure, the Fu family felt somewhat unsettled by my nonchalant demeanor and my promise to cease all contact. Following my exit, Fu Lei remarked, "Indeed, she's a lost cause. Thankfully, you didn't choose her." The remaining three members of the Fu family returned to the living room with expressionless faces, seemingly oblivious to Fu Lei's words. For several days thereafter, Fu's father, mother, and brother felt a sense of guilt toward the daughter they had seemingly cast aside. During meals, or in moments of leisure, they couldn't help but recall the face strikingly similar to their own. That daughter had only been brought home for a month, yet her skin had lightened slightly, and her once rough hands bore fewer scars. To visit her at school or to seek her out seems to have become a lost privilege, as if it would be an intrusion. Fu Lei gazed at them, feeling an inexplicable sense of anxiety. She hurriedly summoned the system to impose various capricious demands and commands. The first to notice the unusual behavior of her adopted daughter was Madame Fu. "Mother, last time I desired that gown, you insisted they exhaust every effort to produce it. I must wear it to the banquet this month. Custom-made garments typically require around 6 months, yet Madame Fu, after much effort and additional funding, managed to shorten the timeline to 3 months. Her daughter insisted it be completed in a month, leaving her somewhat exasperated. The artisan simply could not meet such a demand, suggesting instead a different dress, for there were countless beautiful gowns available. "I don't care. I want it. If you can't make it happen, then you don't love me." Fu Lei began to wail again, and for reasons unknown, Madame Fu felt a twinge of irritation this time. She lavished affection upon Fu Lei, calling her darling, while neglecting to inquire about her biological daughter's clothing for an entire month. While organizing clothes, she realized that the garments belonging to that girl and her suitcase did not contain a single t-shirt as expensive as those worn by her own daughter. The absurdity struck her. Why did her adopted daughter, having already received so much, insist upon a dress that simply could not be produced? Trust level with the target decreased by 20. Host, please take note. As if hearing some inner voice, her adopted daughter obediently embraced her, claiming indifference towards the gown, emphasizing only her heartfelt intentions. Madame Fu pondered, was her heartfelt intention truly an $8 million custom evening gown? Was that not sufficient? Initially, she perceived her biological daughter's intentions as overly self-serving, believing her acts of affection were merely manipulative tactics to gain advantages. Yet, it felt as if she could never regain that daughter, causing her unease. Nevertheless, in her attempts to manage and guide Fu Lei, she found herself once again incapable of refusing her adopted daughter's demands. She longed to see her biological daughter, though for reasons unknown, fragments of memory surfaced within her. It was as if another version of herself warned that upon meeting her biological daughter, she would not feel like a puppet suddenly stripped of her identity. Why did that memory seem so vivid, akin to a recollection from a previous life? Meanwhile, the father and son of the Fu family began to experience similar fragmented memories.
Fu Lei's desires grew increasingly insatiable.
She insisted on transferring company shares into her name. Even as a freshman, she aimed to join the company to take over the conglomerate, yet she faltered on several projects. Fu Sheng, her brother, bore the brunt of their father's ire, wishing to engage in a sincere conversation with his sister. Yet, entranced, he found himself, before realizing it, purchasing dozens of the season's latest handbags for Fu Lei at a luxury store. He even transferred ownership of a villa under his name to her.
Mr. Fu, bewildered,
observed the continuous appearance of share transfer contracts on his desk that he had unwittingly signed. He repeatedly attempted to reject his daughter's requests, even concealing from the prospective suitor, who was meant to marry his biological daughter, that Fu Lei was indeed his biological child. When confronted with a paternity test, he still felt as if under some spell, willingly acceding to the exorbitant demands of the suitor's family, all to ensure his adopted daughter could be with the one she desired. They attempted to fight back, to refuse, even to bind themselves, yet discovered they were entirely unable to deny Fu Lei's wishes. It wasn't until Fu Lei, who had been indulging in late-night revelries and excesses, declared that her kidneys were failing that the three members of the Fu family, like marionettes under complete control, numbly nodded in agreement to undergo matching procedures. In this life, I cast aside distractions and devoted myself wholeheartedly to my personal passions and self-improvement, no longer concerning myself with the well-being of my biological parents. Yet, the system incessantly notified me of rewards being credited. I do not consider myself particularly astute. Despite my efforts, I did not gain admission to the most prestigious school. I chose to study abroad, pursuing my most cherished fields, literature, art, and philosophy. Those around me lamented that my chosen disciplines would yield no financial gain and would be arduous. However, I found myself devoid of material desires, no longer needing wealth. With tenuous familial bonds, I accepted my fate. Before changing my number, the Fu family attempted to contact me. I ignored their calls from unfamiliar numbers. Subsequently, my biological mother sent numerous messages. "Darling, could you come visit your mother? I seem to remember things from our past life. Sister, I recall how hard you tried to save us. Fu Lei has gone too far.
Daughter,
I regret not choosing you. I feel lost. Can you grant me another chance?" In the end, their messages took on a tone akin to pleading. "Darling, sister, daughter, I no longer wish to be controlled. Please come and save our family." I paid them no heed, for after all, 300 million awaited me. Ultimately, I learned their fate through social news. Their daughter, Fu Lei, due to a life of excess, developed an autoimmune disease and her kidneys failed entirely. In her desire to escape life, she compelled the entire family to commit suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning. My parents and brother obediently followed her lead into death. After all, they belonged to a powerful and affluent family, yet in death, they left behind a mountain of debts. The incident quickly became a trending topic, lingering in the spotlight for an entire month. Authorities and netizens attempted to locate me, but I maintained that I was not closely acquainted with them. Although we shared blood, we had long been estranged. For I am Pluto, the exiled planet from the solar system. I only wish to live quietly and comfortably, following my own path, crafting the life I desire. Their lives hold no relevance to me.
The end.
Thank you for listening, and until we meet again in the next tale.